excited to be here again with my brother Roy. I've been watching Roy's videos, and one of the things that's come up for me is like Roy has such a scientific way of seeing things, but I have a completely different way of seeing things, and I'm not quite grasping everything Roy's been sharing. But I want to because I can feel that this is really powerful information. So I asked Roy if I could do another interview with him, and let's just dive into some of these things you've been talking about and teaching, Roy. And I want to ask questions is almost like as if I'm channeling your audience, right?
Sure.
And
Perfect.
let's see if we can dive deeper into some of these concepts that you're teaching, because I'm sure I'm not the only one that wants to understand them better and that doesn't
Sure.
have a naturally gifted scientific way of thinking about things.
Sure.
Great. So I guess what I'm wanting is like, what have you been diving into? Like, I know you've talked about the pH and some of the other, like you had chemical stuff. Like, what sounds the most fun for you to start? Where does yeah,
Well, I guess
start
maybe
with
the,
the most
the
fun?
the best place to start would be the question that everybody asks me the most: is drinking pure water or drinking alkaline water?
Yes.
I keep asking that question because there's so much stuff on the internet. You can find an answer to anything that you want, but it's just marketing. And so to get the truth, everybody keeps asking. And so I was trying to explain if pure water is 7 on the pH scale. And so the pH scale goes from 0 to 14. And so 7 is the center and neutral. If you go lower than 7, that is acidic. And if you go
Okay.
above 7, then that is considered base or alkali.
Okay. And so you're
Okay.
talking about the pH of our bodies, correct? Or just
Well, the
pH in
pH
general?
scale in general. We
Okay.
all use the pH scale in everyday life, in science, in health, in eating, everything. But in order to understand that, you have to understand the original pH scale of 0 to 14. And that
Okay.
essentially because hydrogen is the most abundant element on the planet or in the universe, that
Okay.
that scale of pH is very important. And essentially that scale shows you, it's quite complicated, but to simplify it, it shows you that if you're at 7 and neutral, your hydrogen ion at that point is neutral. It doesn't have an electrostatic charge either of the alkali or of the acid.
Okay. So you're
Follow
just
me so
neutral.
far?
And yeah, I'm following you so far, but where's the healthy place for a body to be? And why would you want one versus another?
Okay, so the healthy place for a body to be is there's a lot of different fluids in the body, but
Hmm.
the blood is the most important. So the
Okay.
blood needs to stay at pH of 7 to 7.3.
Okay.
And so a little bit more onto the pH scale, just so that you can understand, when you go to 7 as a neutral point, if you're dropping down to 6 on the acid side, that is times more acidic than the neutral one. And then 5
Oh,
is also 100 times more acidic than 7.
dang.
Because
Okay.
to simplify that, if you take between 7 and 6, there's 10 intermediate levels. We go 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, 6.4, all the way up. And every point more concentrated of acidic. Does that make sense?
Right. Yes, it
So,
does.
so if you get all the way down to 1 versus 7, you are extremely, you've exponentially compounded that all the way down.
Yeah.
And going
Yeah.
up on the alkali side, it's the same. So you start
Okay.
jumping in increments
And
of
the
alkali.
acidic is I mean, no, we need some acidity in our body, but the acidic is very unhealthy.
Incorrect.
Okay.
Incorrect. So this is a
Tell me what
huge
you're discovering.
misnomer on a lot of people's understandings, because they hear that our bodies need to be alkaline. And so
Mhm.
they believe that we need to put alkaline stuff into the body, but that's wrong. So our body is designed with this, it's called the Krebs cycle. It's I've talked about it a little bit before, but the real name for it is called the citric acid cycle. So our
Okay.
bodies basically have a citric acid factory. Everything that we eat, we put in there, and it runs it through the citric acid cycle. So it lowers the pH of everything we eat.
Okay.
So going through that, but that's how it processes everything. So once it's gone
That
through,
because of our stomach acids?
no,
How it lowers it?
Well, the stomach acids do lower it. Yes.
Okay.
So they lower it, they get it prepared, they get all the processing done so that it can get sent into the citric acid cycle and not take a huge draw on that citric acid cycle.
Okay.
Because the stomach acids are stronger than that citric acid cycle. Just to
Okay.
give you an idea, citric acid is about 3 on the pH. Hydrochloric acid or stomach acid is between 1.2 or 1.5 and 2. So
Okay.
basically, it's the lowest in our body, and so it prepares everything that we eat through an acid solution. But
Okay.
our body then it bumps it up into the citric acid cycle, and then our body looks at it, sees what it is, and sees what it needs, what chemicals it needs to produce in order to send it to the blood or send it to the brain or send it to wherever. If the body is functioning properly, then the blood can hold a pH of 7 to 7.3. Even
Okay.
though we're eating acidic stuff, it doesn't matter because the citric acid cycle fixes all that if we're in a healthy body. Now, where people get lost is they say, well, my body's too acidic. Well, if you eat things that make the citric acid cycle have to produce more citric acid in order to process it, like a great big T-bone steak or something like that, it has
Yeah.
to produce a tremendous amount of citric acid in order to process that meat, to break it down, to extract the amino acids. Really, all it's
Okay.
looking to do is to get the amino acids and some carbohydrates out of that steak. The rest of it has to figure out what it's going to do with it and process it. So
Okay.
the more things that you eat that create the injection of citric acid, the more our bodies can't counteract that and become an alkaline.
Okay.
So that's kind of
Pulls
going way
down
off into,
balance.
oh yes, it throws you way off balance. So now let's go back to the water. If people are trying to get out of an acid state by putting alkaline in the water, what happens is when they drink that alkalinity that's in the water, it goes down in and it neutralizes the stomach acids, or it tries to neutralize the stomach acids. Well, that is making that vicious cycle of being inflamed and too much acid already, it's making it worse because now the gastric juices are not pure. They've been counter affected, so they're closer to neutral. So now they are
Oh,
higher than the citric acid on the pH scale. Does that make sense? So now
yes.
they can no longer pre-prepare the food or the water that we drink to send it up to the citric acid cycle. And so now the citric acid cycle is getting all this high alkalinity stuff, and it's using up the breakdown power of the citric acid.
Okay.
Okay. So
Yeah.
So now we go back to why pure water is better for you than putting alkalinity. Because if you have pure water is neutral. It's a 7 on the scale. But because it has a positive on the hydrogens and a negative on the oxygen, it wants to absorb anything of those opposite charges. Well, positive and negative are both charges. So water
Right.
is looking to absorb something. And the available molecules that it can absorb are carbon dioxide from the air. Now, carbon
Okay.
dioxide happens to be just one little tiny particle of carbon that connects with 2 oxygen molecules because it's everywhere in the air, right? So the carbon particle floating around is anything that's burned out of a chimney or burned out of a car exhaust pipe or anything like that. That's where the carbon comes from. Follow me so
Okay.
far? So the carbon
Fine.
particles are floating through the air. They pick up 2 oxygen molecules, and now we have carbon dioxide, right? It
Okay.
wants to connect to the water. As soon as it connects to the water, now water is no longer H2O. It's still pure, but now it's H2CO3 because the H2O had 1 oxygen molecule. The carbon dioxide has 2. But when they combine, the 3 oxygens want to connect, having the carbon be the center, and we have 2 little hydrogen ions still off to the side. So that's the important part, is we still only have the 2 hydrogen ions.
Okay.
When we drink that, our bodies are made of carbon, so it understands how to deal with that carbon, and we can explain how it gets rid of the carbon. Well, basically, as it runs through the body, then we breathe out any extra carbon that may be in there as
Oh,
the form of carbon dioxide. That's what we
okay.
exhale.
So we're
Okay,
breathing, let me see if I'm following you. So we're breathing in the carbon dioxide,
correct.
and when it connects with
Well,
the
sorry,
pure
we're breathing
water.
in oxygen.
We're breathing in oxygen. Yes.
We exhale carbon dioxide.
Right. So we're breathing in oxygen, which has the molecules. Tell me the molecules again in the oxygen.
In the oxygen, you would have a carbon molecule and 2 oxygen molecules.
Okay, so we have the oxygen and the carbon. Okay, and so then that comes and connects with the pure water, which when you're talking about pure water, that's like RO water or distilled water, correct?
Correct. Yeah. Well, when I'm talking about pure water, it has to be distilled because RO water has a small amount. And so technically it wouldn't be H2O. It might be H2 calcium or 1 magnesium. But for science, we'll do distilled because it's pure.
Okay.
So that is it's technically H2O.
Okay.
Right.
So then when they come together, tell me again what happens when
Okay.
the two come together.
So when you purify the water, you have a molecule of H2O and it's pure. It has a positive charge, 2 positive charges on one side and a negative charge on the other. And so in the air is carbon dioxide and it's just floating around and there's trillions of it. So the second that this water, it has a charge, right? It's positive and a negative charge, which happens to be carbon dioxide is floating right above it. So the second that this electrostatic connection, it's like a magnet. They stick together.
Okay.
And when that happens, that's called autoionization. And that creates carbonic acid.
Okay.
So carbonic acid is basically H2CO3. And the reason that that's important is because by telling you that it's H2 tells you that it's only got 2 ions, 1 carbon, and 3 oxygens. So if you only have 2 hydrogens, when you drink that, your stomach acid, let's just say for a number's sake, has 500,000 hydrogen ions per molecule of stomach acid. When you drink this water, each molecule only has 2 more hydrogen ions. So it isn't going to make any difference, well, very minimal difference in 500,000 per molecule, right? And so this is where I'm trying to drive the point home. That is why it's good to drink pure water, because it doesn't dilute the gastric juices in any way because there's only 2 hydrogen ions. If you drink anything that's lower on the pH, then for instance, orange juice, 1 molecule of orange juice, if you could put that into the stomach acids, it's going to add 29,000 hydrogen ions per molecule of orange juice.
Okay. And that is adding it on the acid level or
correct. The more hydrogen ions that you have, the more acidic it goes down. Maybe that's the key point I needed to say.
Yeah.
So the more hydrogen ions, so that's the pH scale, is the scale of how many ions. If you're 7 and you go this way, it's how many ions can be trapped of hydrogen.
Okay.
And the more that's trapped, the more it goes down to lower to the acidic side of the scale.
Okay.
Now, on the other side of this, real quick, so we can finish this, the ions are still present, but in order to raise the pH, we can't just add more hydrogen ions because that lowers it. What we do is the hydrogen ions, they raise the hydrogen ions, but they start to capture oxygen molecules on these hydrogen ions, and that raises the pH because oxygen carries a ton of electrons. And so the electrons create electronegativity. And when the oxygen molecules hook to the hydrogen, they have who knows how many electrons orbiting around the outside of that oxygen, but they can continually get more and more. So the affinity is the ability to hold extra electrons. And as you go up that scale, the oxygen has an affinity for electrons. It holds more and more and more and more, but the hydrogen doesn't necessarily change.
Okay.
Makes sense?
No,
that was a lot.
Yeah, it was a lot.
But I'm trying to explain.
Very interesting.
I'm trying to explain this many cables into one. It's hard, but I'm just mostly trying to
give me another example. So the orange juice example helped a lot. So it helped me to understand when you drink orange juice, you actually are dropping down into the more acidic level, right?
Correct.
But that's not necessarily a bad thing like we've been thinking about it.
Right. It is not a bad thing. And so when we drink the orange juice, basically, because orange juice is citric acid, that's why it's so good to drink our lemon juice or lemon water in the morning or orange juice, is because we are replenishing our citric acid cycle tank. It
Oh,
goes
that's
into the orange juice goes into the gastric juices. In the gastric juices, like I say, is hydrochloric acid of 1.5 to 2 pH. But
mhm.
along with that are purified electrolytes that sitting in an acid solution of hydrochloric acid. You get potassium hydrochloride, you get calcium hydrochloride. These are some of our other electrolytes that are very important for the body. They get developed and purified in the gastric juices. So then when we drink citric acid as an orange juice, we are basically filling up our gas tank for the citric acid cycle so that we can eat anything else we want the rest of the day, and we'll have enough fuel, citric acid fuel, to process it.
Interesting. Okay. So, what analogy could you give me to help me understand the alkalinity side that you were?
If we're going to go on the other side of, let's take the orange juice, and it's the 3.3, and let's throw a whole bunch of oxygen molecules on all those hydrogens that
Okay.
it's holding, right? So it has 29,000 hydrogen
Mhm.
ions. Let's just put 29,000 oxygen molecules on those hydrogen ions. That automatically is going to jump the pH to somewhere in the neighborhood of probably 9.
Okay. And how do you get those oxygen? Just by breathing? Do we do that by breathing, or
Well,
is
no, in the industry, they have to do it through chemical reactions. Chemical reactions will pick up that, will make the electrons jump. So if you wanted to change the electricity or change the electrons in the orange juice, you could put electrodes in the orange juice. So this is what the Kangen machine does, right? The
okay?
Kangen machine actually has 2 electrodes, and they put it in the water, and then they energize it. Well,
Okay.
electricity is electrons. And so when they energize through these plates that they have in there, the electrons have nowhere to go. So they go in the water. And when
Mm,
they go in the water, there's also oxygen in the water because we have H2O, right? And so that O part has that negative charge, and all these electrons love the oxygen, right? And so they're going to, in the field, you have an outer electron field for the oxygen. They're going to fill up through the electricity. They're going to jump from the plates and into this field that's around the oxygen molecule. So, but they came from electricity. The
okay.
problem with the electricity producing those is through the metal plates, is the metal plates are not made to transfer electrons without the electrons of the metal starting to disintegrate
Oh,
and releasing out as well. And that's my problem that I have with those machines that use direct electrolysis, because
yeah.
those free electrons aren't free. They came from the metal.
Okay.
Some of them came from the metal, and they have an affinity for harsher alkalis or whatever the metal's made out of. And those electrons are used to that electrostatic field. And I don't
Mhm.
want those in my body.
And why?
Why? Because they create, if they're used to a negative electrostatic field, as soon as you take that electron off, it has its own field that has now been charged negatively electrostatic,
Okay.
electrostatic negative. When I eat that or consume that, that's a free radical.
Oh,
I mean, it's basically a free radical is like saying a city town. Any radical is a free radical. There's positive radicals, there's negative radicals, and there's neutral radicals. A neutral
okay.
radical doesn't hurt us because it's not
Okay.
looking necessarily to take an electron from an important part of our body.
Okay. And so the free radicals actually go and they take um, chemicals that we actually need.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
So for
And that's
instance,
what.
say I ate a spinach leaf and then I
Mhm.
drank some alkaline water that was electrically alkaline. Well, that some of those oxygen electrons are going to jump off and potentially into the spinach, because the spinach now has full complete profiles and has an open electron field that those
Mhm.
electrons just want. It's got an open swimming pool, so to speak, and
Okay.
those electrons want to jump in it.
Okay. So those electrons jump in it, and then what happens?
Well, it taints my beautiful clean swimming pool of my spinach, because
Okay, that's what I was wanting to get to.
they're electronegative charge. How they got that electronegative doesn't matter. They're electronegative.
Okay.
And
Okay.
they're gonna contaminate my pool of my spinach, of my clean
Right.
molecule of spinach, right? They're gonna contaminate it.
Okay. Okay. And so then when you eat that spinach that it has been contaminated, then what happens?
Well, it creates, as the body's processing that spinach, that one electron that has the electronegativity in there is a free radical. It's going to connect to something that it can connect to and create oxidative stress.
Okay. And what does oxidative stress do to your body?
Well, it obviously it's on a very small scale. So an oxidative stress, when it bumps up to a cell wall, it actually oxidizes the cell wall. It kind of like explodes the area that it hits into. It just explodes it.
Mm.
That's called oxidization.
Okay, so it's pretty damaging then for the cell.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, too much of that oxidative stress and the cell dies. It just completely disintegrates and dies. And yeah, we start to age and get gray hair and all the things that oxidative stress does. And that's one benefit to the hydrogen. When you breathe and drink the hydrogen, if you have any of these electronegative radicals that are floating around in your body, the hydrogen can help pick up some of those because it can get into places that other antioxidants cannot.
Okay, so this is one of the reasons why it's so detoxing.
Correct. Correct.
Yes, that's probably been the number one thing I've experienced myself is the detox of doing the hydrogen. Like I'm detoxing pretty quickly, faster than I detox when I'm fasting with no food or juice, right? I'm
Right.
detoxing eating and doing the hydrogen. I'm detoxing faster. And
Nice.
it's been like, holy wow, this is amazing.
Oh, I guess I have a question. Are you using any detoxifiers for the blood?
Tell me what those are.
Well, my favorite detoxer for the blood would be either like chlorella or clinoptilolite.
Okay. I have done clinoptilolite quite a bit in the past,
What was
right?
your thoughts on it?
I freaking loved it. It helped remove. So I've struggled with heavy metals in my
Mhm.
body to the degree that I haven't been able to wear earrings or necklaces because I'd break out in rashes, and
Ah,
my ears would just never would heal. Like years. We're talking 8 years. My ears never healed from being punctured, right? And I finally realized it was the metals, and I've been tested for heavy metals, and I had so many heavy metals. So I did a clinoptilite product that just very quickly, within probably 4 or 5 months, I was testing completely different
nice,
the heavy metals, right?
nice.
And had released a ton. So that was really amazing. And then I started doing the hydrogen, and the first thing I noticed was that heavy metal taste coming out.
Yeah,
That
yeah.
same taste when I was releasing the heavy metals with clinoptilite, I was experiencing with the hydrogen.
In my opinion, I think because the metals in our brain are the absolute hardest to detox from, I think
Mm,
that's maybe what you were tasting because I think that's what I have experienced too, is maybe some of the detoxing from the brain.
that's amazing.
Because if you're breathing the hydrogen, it can automatically go past the blood-brain barrier, right? Which is where we want it to go.
Right. Until why does it go past the blood-brain barrier and
Well,
other
because
things
you're
don't?
breathing it through your nose. And
Okay.
anytime you do anything through the nose, your blood-brain barrier actually goes about right here. And well,
Oh,
technically, I mean, if you eat something, it goes down, but the blood-brain barrier is about here. And so anything that goes up the nose bypasses the blood-brain barrier and you get it a lot quicker.
wow. Okay. And also, isn't the hydrogen a very tiny, teeny, tiny
It is.
molecule? So it doesn't have like free access into the cell.
It does. It has free access, but by breathing it, you're essentially just flooding your brain with all these antioxidants. By drinking the water, it has to go down into the blood, process, and
Oh,
then through the blood if it lasts, because we know that hydrogen wants to exit, right, within an hour. So if you drink it, are your extra hydrogen molecules going to get processed in the body and get all the way up to the brain and still be as good of an
oh,
antioxidant? I don't think so.
got it. Yeah, got it. That's why it's so healthy to breathe it as well as drink it.
Yep.
That's awesome. Okay, so then tell me how so I'm getting a ton more hydrogen into my body.
Mm-hmm.
How does that work on the pH scale?
Well, it doesn't. That's the beautiful thing with hydrogen is because the hydrogen that you're breathing is pure hydrogen. It
Right.
doesn't change. It's neutral. It's
Oh.
pure. It can just go right in. An individual sovereign entity, all of its own, every single one of them can go in, selectively pick any any oxidative or oxide that it finds, connect with it, turn it into water, and finish its little.
And then do you just flush it out of your body with the water? I know
Correct.
like I'm having detox stuff like coming out my skin.
Yep.
It doesn't hurt. None of it has hurt. I haven't had like the detox headache. I've had other pressures, but I was having those before the hydrogen, right?
Hmm.
Um, but I've had detox, like the heavy metals coming out. I've had like breaking out with like little teeny tiny pimples. I know it's
Yep.
just releasing from my skin,
Yep.
like it's and none of it hurts or nothing. It just these little teeny tiny bumps, right? Like I'm just releasing like on such a big scale. I don't even
I
remember the
think
question I asked
fully
you.
hydration is the cause of that.
Okay.
Be fully
Okay. So
hydrated.
full hydration.
Yep. I don't think that we've experienced true full
So
hydration because of our environment and all the oxidatives, well, or the mineral buildup or the trauma buildup or the stress. I call it all trauma because essentially that's what it is around the cells. So I think as a society, we're not hydrated
right.
just because of all the crap that's in our environment.
Right. Right.
And so you're able to, with these antioxidants, for the first time in your life or in my life, be fully hydrated. And so I used to not sweat very much.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I just thought it was a cool technique I learned, right? But no, it was because I hadn't drinking enough water. Now I sweat, but it's clear, it's clean, it's a good kind of sweat. It's healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Wow, this is amazing.
So do you understand the pH scale? Do I need to go in more on that?
I understand more of the pH scale. I think what I was needing was more real life understanding of like
Right.
examples of how this works, right? So, so talk to me a little bit more about the cell and the buildup around the cell and why we get dehydrated, like
Okay.
how
So
that works,
a lot of um a lot of people like salt.
right?
Himalayan
Me
salt,
too.
sea salt, table salt, whatever. Well, it is inorganic. And we'll just take one mineral, for instance. It's Himalayan salt. Everybody thinks, well, because it's Himalayan, it's got my minerals in it, so I can just put it all over my food. Well, that's incorrect because Himalayan salt is sodium chloride that has trace minerals in it,
Hmm.
but they're still inorganic. Those trace minerals, our body can't use them in that form. Our body can only use
Hmm.
organic minerals. And so when people put salt on their food, when they or when they're eating their food that's had all kinds of just environmental toxins. So as we eat that, what happens is the cell, hopefully a healthy cell, has four balanced electrolytes that are stationary in the cell. And when we drink food or water, or when we eat or drink, the cells are looking to bring in the nutrients. They can really only bring in pure nutrients because of the osmosis factor that the electrolytes create by sitting in the center of the cell. Their presence creates a sucking inward. Does that make sense? In the cell. And so that's how the water gets from the outside of the cell inside the cell, is because those four electrolytes are calling it in. Well, they can only call
Okay.
pure water. If there's mineral in the
Okay.
water, then what happens is that mineral starts to impact all on the outside of that cell. And so
Because
now,
it's too big.
because it's too big, that is
And
correct.
inorganic. So when you say inorganic, you're talking about minerals from like shell and rock and
Yes.
that kind of stuff, right? And
Yes.
organic would be more from plants, correct?
Correct. Yes.
Okay.
So if you're going to get salt, real salt or sodium chloride, I don't even know if plants make it, but it would be green. It would be plant based
Mm,
and it would be water soluble. You would actually put it in water and it would dissolve. That's the only kind
yeah.
of mineral that
Okay.
our bodies can use. Even the sodium chloride that we put on our thing, that doesn't dissolve into a form that we can use. It dissolves into a form. And so you have your cell, and all around that outside cell, all the way around, so if you can imagine a ring of scale, right?
Mm,
Scale around your faucet and stuff like that.
yeah.
And that scale going all the way around that cell. Now the electrolytes are on the inside. Two things can happen. They are still electrostatically trying to pull the pure water through, but now they have a barrier to pull the water through, a brick wall, so to speak. Have
Okay.
to pull the pure water through that brick wall. So they're trying to do that, but the brick wall that's around the cell has an electrostatic pull of its own. So
Mm,
it is holding the water on the outside of the cell because of its electrostatic pull. So what happens
Oh,
is there's far more minerals on the outside of the cell that has built a brick wall on the inside of the cell, because it's just a little cell, has four,
oh,
one of each of the electrolytes. So they cannot overpower and pull this through. So the concrete wall on the outside wins, and it gets all the water. The cell shrinks, because what the cell is deciding to do is, this wall that's built up around the outside, it can't get anything through that. So the cell, to protect itself, shrinks. Now there's an open area around the cell that it can absorb more minerals, but it can't because of this outer brick wall. So the cell shrinks, 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 shrinks. We get dehydrated, the cell dies.
oh. Wow, that's fascinating, Roy. So then let's take the hydrogen completely out of it. If somebody were to just drink the distilled pure water, what does this do to the cell?
Okay,
Keep
so
that
great
membrane
question.
around it.
You've got your brick wall around the cell with your
Right.
membrane on the inside and your four electrolytes. If you
Okay.
drink distilled water can actually go in and it sits all around here. Well, distilled water has its own electrostatic charge. It wants to dissolve these minerals that are around
Okay.
the outside of the cell. Even though they're inorganic, we need them to start dissolving this brick wall, and then we'll pee out all the inorganic minerals. But it's going to be a month or so before this wall is finally dissolved, to where these guys that are inside the cell can actually start bringing pure water in again.
Wow. Okay. So then now talk about, how does hydrogen help that entire process?
Okay, so how hydrogen helps is
So if
basically,
you're hydrogenating the pure water.
right. So
Okay.
basically, you've got your brick wall around here. You've got your cell that has been shrinking, 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 right? The hydrogen going in basically pushes this cell back up, because the cell doesn't realize, by shrinking down, trying to create space, it's going to die. So the hydrogen holds the cell back up into its original template, hopefully while you're drinking water and dissolving this wall. So basically, they're the rescuers that are holding the life here until the firemen can break through the wall and actually start hydrating the cell. That's what the
Okay. So
hydrogen do.
so the
They're little
hydrogen can
paramedics.
get the the hydrogen can get through that
Yes.
barrier, that brick wall.
Yes. The reason why it can get through that brick wall, two reasons. One, it's so super small that it can just fly right through those minerals. And the other reason is it's a pure neutral atom with no
Charge of its
charge
own.
of its own. It's
Okay.
full, I like to call it sovereignty,
Sovereignty. Oh, I love it. It's a sovereign molecule.
sovereign
And
molecule.
so it can go into the cell and it can enhance the cell and hold it up bigger until we've released enough of that barrier around, that then that we can actually start absorbing our water.
Correct. We can start absorbing the H2O because of the H inside.
Okay. Because of the H inside, we can start absorbing it. Oh, that's beautiful. Okay. Wow, I think I'm starting to understand. This
Good,
is
good, good.
fabulous. This is fabulous. Okay, I'm like, okay, are there any other questions I want to ask, or that anything coming up for you that wants to be asked or spoken about to help people understand this process a little better?
I, yeah, I think that I've
So
pretty
let's
much
talk about
exhausted.
food a little bit then.
Okay.
Okay. So we've talked about getting our plant-based minerals. So there are so many minerals out on the market, right?
Yes, yes.
And I'm currently taking one that is plant-based,
Mhm.
and I've loved it, and I've noticed lots of health benefits from that. But a lot of the minerals that you can take nowadays are not plant-based.
Correct, correct.
Do you know this? Are all your trace minerals not plant-based? When they say trace minerals, what do they mean by that?
Well, trace minerals are minerals that are of a very, very small amount that we need. In my
Okay.
research, though, in salts, the trace minerals are a little bit of the electrolytes
Uh-huh.
we need, but they're still inorganic.
Okay.
So, so you can have an inorganic calcium, inorganic calcium, inorganic sodium, and organic sodium. So you can
Okay.
have an organic and inorganic of all of it. One
Okay.
just happens to have formed in the mountain, and that's the inorganic. But somewhere along the line, a plant or an animal ate that rock and digested it, and turned it to an organic through whatever process they did.
Okay.
And so that's why plants and animals are so important to us, because we can't go eat the mountain. The plants
But
and animals can.
plants and animals can.
Technically the plants, the animals don't, but the plants. The plants
Yeah.
can eat the mountain because they're hooked to the mountain. Their
Right.
roots are there. That's where they have been designed to get their minerals. Anyway.
That's what I was just going to ask. Like, I don't want to villainize inorganic minerals, right? And so I was just going to ask you that. So this is beautiful. So the plants eat those inorganic minerals from the
Right.
rocks and shells and that type of stuff, and then we uptake the plant,
Correct.
and that gives us the kind of minerals that we can actually utilize in our body in a healthy way.
Correct. I mean, that's, yeah, the plants do that on their own scale, but they have a hard time uptaking the many arrays and varieties of the inorganics. And so that's why the rhizosphere in the ground, or the biosphere, is so important for the bugs.
Okay, tell me more about that.
So there's 3 different types of major classes of bugs that are in the ground. And each one eats the next one up, but the smallest one are like the protozoa. And so they will basically they'll sit on an inorganic mineral, and then their digestive tract is on the outside of their body. So they just excrete juices all over this mineral, and it breaks the mineral down into a aqueous solution that they can absorb. So then they absorb it. Then the bigger bug is it's an arthropod. And so the arthropod comes over and eats the protozoa. Well, the arthropod is an exoskeleton, right? And so it eats this, and through its digestion process, it builds all the inorganics up into the skeleton, which is now organic, right? So then this arthropod dies, and then the plant says, oh, hey, look at all this beautiful calcium magnesium that's already in water-soluble form. And so it starts picking up from the exoskeleton. So if we don't have those bugs in the ground, then our plants only pick up what the plant can convert, because it's still not going to pick up. For instance, it's not going to pick up basalt. It's like 10 different forms of rock. It can't do anything with that. But if I have a rice husk in the ground that contains silica, when it rains, that plant would be able to pick the silica up from the rice husk, because the rice husk is already organic. That makes sense?
Yes.
But pick up the basalt. And so that's where we need the arthropods. The arthropods go eat the basalt because they're big, tough mothers with their exoskeleton, right? They can do it. And then the plant eats the arthropod.
What a beautiful balance to nature.
Yes, but we don't have that balance.
Right.
Everywhere I've looked, that is imbalanced so far to the extreme that we're not getting the proper nutrients from the plants. And I've been telling everybody, get it from your plants.
Right. But we don't have it there because we're killing off the bugs.
Exactly. Every time we till the ground, do you know that we kill instantly 50% with one till of the protozoa? 50% dies the second it sees sunlight. Because the protozoa is not like us. We are supposed to eat organic stuff, and so we need sunlight. The bugs in the ground, they eat inorganic stuff, so they're on the opposite scale. They don't need the sunlight. In fact, if you cover it with mulch so that they never see the sun, they grow and they thrive because they're getting their sunlight from the exudates from the plant. So the plant gets the sunlight from the leaf, sends the sugars down into the roots. The roots secrete sugars called exudates, and the bugs eat those. So they're still getting blessed by the sun.
Oh, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. So I know you've also done a lot of research and experimenting with your own gardens and your own bugs and all of that kind of stuff to be able to counteract this issue. So what would be your top things for people to help get the nutrients into our plants? Like, don't kill the bugs. Do you want to include bugs, or do they naturally grow themselves? Like when you stop tilling, when you stop putting toxins on your soil?
Yeah, I think that the bugs will find its way unless you're in an extremely toxic area. What I found was my dirt in my garden was so rough, I had to jackhammer every single shovel out. I jackhammered it out, but then what I did is I brought in, new soil that I had made. It was some topsoil and some worm castings, and then a whole bunch of amendments that I put together, like rice husks for the silica, different things that I could put in there that would break down and create the minerals content that I wanted.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
in my learning, the schooling that I took, there is enough mineral in 1 grain of sand to feed the mineral for an entire acre garden, if you
What?
knew how to get it out of the sand.
Right, but we need bugs to do that.
Bugs to do that. And so there's enough fertilizer everywhere in the world. We don't need to add synthetic chemical fertilizers for nothing. All
Yeah.
we have to do is grow the right kind of bugs that the earth wants to grow. We just need to feed them and get the environment so that they like it by not tilling and putting the right things in the soil. I do worm tea on a regular basis in the summertime on my garden and all my trees on a weekly basis, so that they can have the nutrients that they need. I also do mycorrhizal fungi treatments. And so
Wow, where do you get that? How do you do that?
well, mycorrhizal fungi, you can buy, it's like 50 different spores of fungus. And
Okay.
basically what the idea is if you get the two tablespoons of this fungus and you mix it with like two or 4 gallons of water, you mix it and then you water your trees with that. What happens is those spores of the fungus, they go down into the ground and then they create a massive mycelium network. And what happens is that mycelium network, I don't know if you've ever seen one, but there's just
Oh, yes, I
of
have.
hairs that crisscross. Well, what they do is they shuttle nutrients. So if you build a mycelium network underneath, let's say a fruit tree, then you plant a fruit tree on top of that. As soon as the roots touch that mycelium network, now the roots of the tree are as big as the mycelium network, because that mycelium
Oh,
network shuttles nutrients. That's what it does.
wow.
Shuttles
That's
nutrients through
beautiful.
the tree.
So
So
very intricate, like freeway system.
exactly, I like to call them tributaries or
Oh,
waterways,
I love it. Yes.
underground waterways, because it's essentially a root that inside that root, inside and outside, it's just pumping sugars or food or fluids that they need. Anyway, it's a beautiful thing.
If you don't have this yet, Roy, at some point I would love to see like a writing, something written up of everything that you add to the soil
Mhm.
of your gardens, like how you do it.
Mhm.
And maybe you'll teach something on this at some point. I don't
Yes.
know how you're going to do this, but I want it.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I actually plan on doing, as soon as springtime comes, I'm going to dig 4 more holes right out in the backyard, and I'm going to do exactly everything that I'm telling you about. And do it all on camera.
That, oh, and all on camera. And are
Mhm.
you just going to add that to your YouTube videos, or are you going to have it sort of be like a class, only the people that registered?
Well,
Or do you
no,
not know yet?
I haven't decided on how I'm going to go that route yet. I just got some information yesterday on a business idea, because I
Mm,
was just thinking that I would like to generate a stream of income,
yeah,
uh, helping people.
yeah.
And how would I do that? And so I was thinking that maybe I know how to read water analysis very well, and most people don't know what's in their water. So
Oh,
if I can offer them a cheap, fairly inexpensive water test, and then
mm-hmm.
when they get the water test, I will read it to them, tell them exactly what it all means. And
Dang, that's
on a
beautiful,
case by
Roy.
case basis, if they're looking to actually treat it, I will tell them and what they need in order to treat it.
Yeah,
Essentially, I was thinking of just consulting on an individual basis, on a personal basis.
yeah. Wow, that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Awesome. Okay. So let's say somebody, like, definitely we want people gardening more, right? We definitely want people to start thinking about the bugs and doing healthy gardening, natural gardening. And there's so many methods out there already. People can learn this on their own, really.
Right.
And I can't wait till you start putting your stuff out there, right? So all of that, but let's say you have somebody living in an apartment, they don't even have a deck to be able to grow things on. You know what I'm saying? What's the best way to get these minerals that our body needs in plant-based form from a source that that we can actually uptake?
I've thought about that, and I run an experiment last spring just to see if I could grow fruits and stuff in buckets.
Yeah.
It just didn't work very well. Now,
Yeah.
granted, it was only 1 year and I was learning, but I was trying to figure out a way for people that live in apartments that can't do that, because that's a lot of people. And I think basically there's just no escaping putting it in the ground. You can't
Yeah.
escape it. You got to connect with nature again. And so if you live in an apartment or a condo or something that doesn't have the ground, then I think it's very prudent to go make friends with somebody that does have a piece of ground and
Hmm.
work together. On a quarter acre, you could get 15 people that are, or 20 people that are working, that live in a condo.
Hmm.
And if you all work on that on a quarter acre, you could grow so much food.
Yeah.
You could actually probably feed 40 people on a quarter acre if you did it right.
And especially these days where food prices are on the rise, and
Right.
even the organic food that you can get isn't really all that great for you.
Not
Like,
organic.
we buy as much organic as possible. Like, we do that, and I can feel the difference. Like, I've grown gardens and I've done it with no till, and I love that, and I can feel the difference between a tomato that's that way or an organically grown one that I got from the grocery store is so different.
Right.
I've been in a place where I haven't been able to grow garden now for 2 years. And
Mm.
it's been like, get me back to the earth.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I
I
want
totally.
to grow. I want to get my hands in the dirt again, and grow that food and be able to taste that ripe tomato that comes off of a plant that has not been in soil that's been tilled, or, that has healthy bugs and all of that in it. Like, it's so different, and it energetically feels so different.
And if it's truly vine ripened, that is
Yes.
so, so important, because you're getting the last final blessings of the sun to
Oh, that's
round it
beautiful.
off. If it's
Talk
vine
about
ripened,
that.
the sun, the way it's constantly shining, like always, but the fruit in its stage, it doesn't pick up so much from the sun until its final ripening stage. That's when
Mm,
it really starts to pick up the sun, because it uses the energy of the sun to actually start to rot. I mean, the ripening process is a rotting process. It
right.
actually uses the sun and starts to push all the sugars and everything to the outer edge, but the sun is what does that. And so if you're truly looking to be connected, then you should have your fruit that has been grown right in the ground, that's been vine ripened by the sun, because you're getting the best of the father and the mother,
I love it. The balance.
the balance. Right. If you
The
get all
harmony.
mother, it's
Right.
going to be fine. You're going to be loved, but you're not going to have maybe some wisdom there that you need to
It's
add to the.
it's kind of like love without integrity.
That's right.
Do
That's
you know what
right.
I mean?
I call that light love.
Yeah.
Light
Light love.
love, and then love with integrity is love light.
Mm. And it's the best, as far as I'm concerned, to have the balance of the two.
Yes. Right.
To
Well,
have the balance of the light and the dark, the the shadow and the, you know what I mean, the bright, right? The father, the mother, the masculine, the feminine. To have the balance of the two in harmony is where it's most beautiful. I even had this analogy pop in, like, the two most beautiful times of day are sunrise and sunset. Why?
mm,
It's because we have such a beautiful balance of the dark and the light. And
right.
everybody wants to go out and witness, the sunrises and the sunsets. And it's because it's in my story altogether. It's because it's in balance. It's
Yeah.
that wholeness we're looking for within ourselves.
Yeah, I love it. The sun's electric and the earth is magnetic. So together it's an electromagnetic.
Mm,
So,
yeah.
I was reading this yesterday in my book of light that I'm reading, and
Uh-huh.
it's talking about sun gazing. If you
Mm.
truly want to reconnect all the circuits in the body, then you need to copy the Sphinx. The Sphinx is all fours on the earth, and it's facing the rising sun.
Oh, wow. I've never heard
Yeah,
of
I
sun
had never
gazing.
heard that, but he said
All
that the
fours.
Sphinx is showing all fours and not just hands, whole palms and legs and everything, because we're trying to connect the more to the ground we can connect, the more we can receive from the light. And everything
Wow.
that we receive is through here.
Wow.
What he's actually saying, this is, I'm going to learn more about it, but what he's actually saying is that obesity does not come from overeating. And he has a pretty darn interesting analogy to prove that. So when you sprain your ankle, does it get bigger or littler?
Well, it swells and gets bigger.
It gets bigger. When you have congestive heart failure, does it get bigger or littler?
Right. Okay. It
When a
gets
star
bigger.
dies, does it get bigger or does it get littler?
Yeah.
The red dwarf gets way bigger. So
Right.
everything his claim on this is, as we lose energy, as we are dying, we get bigger first.
Hmm.
And so he said it, I mean, he says it has nothing to do with food, but I think it has some to do with food. But a lot of the light that goes into our eyes is the signals to tell our bodies how to process the food. That's what I think. And because if you're like on a computer screen, the blue light actually shuts the ATP production in the cell down. And that's opposite from what we want. We want ATP production. So
Right. Wow. 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 So I look at it more as like balance, 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 balance. So you're talking about sun gazing and how that goes in and feeds us.
mhm.
What was the reason you brought that up? There was
Well,
something
because
I
we were just talking about the sun and rebalancing the electrical circuits.
right, and we probably don't get enough sun. So those are the times of days we can actually receive direct sunlight into our eyes is very very when it's first coming up and when it's going all the way down, which we're called to those times of days anyway to be with the sun.
Right.
I find
Right.
that very fascinating.
Yeah, 5 o'clock in the morning is when the infrared comes in. The infrared comes in for about 30 minutes before the sun comes up. Those are the rays that you really, really try to get. In fact, the yogis
Oh.
actually say that those rays actually have the instructions for the day.
Oh.
That's what they say. So if you really want instructions from the higher realm for the day, get up at 5 and go outside, and you have to connect circuitly connect to the earth, and then you'll
Uh-huh.
receive the infrared rays. Because the infrared rays are well, some of them are red, and red balance blue,
Oh, okay.
and blue light is our computer screens. Blue
Right.
light shuts down certain productions. Blue light actually shuts down vitamin A production in our bodies.
Mm,
Vitamin A is yellow. So when you go out and get yellow sunlight, you start getting vitamin A and vitamin D.
mm,
So I just
interesting.
scratching the surface of this lecture, but it's pretty interesting.
Yeah, you're gonna go way deeper, I can tell.
Oh yeah, well he's a doctor, he's a neuroscience scientist, and he's been lecturing this since 2017. He's got a lot of work, so I
Okay.
got a lot of researching to do, because if light truly is everything, then that's something that I can't just neglect. I need to understand it.
Right, right, right.
Especially, I enjoy sun gazing, and I've often wondered why I couldn't gaze here where I'm at, but I could if I was in Phoenix. And he explained it perfectly. In
Why?
certain angles of when the sun comes up, certain areas receive sunlight at different angles, and so some places you can sun gaze better and get more of a spectrum of rays. Other places you can't. He was actually
Oh,
given the lecture in Vermont, and he's like, "I'm sorry, guys, but you guys have about 6 minutes to sun gaze in Vermont. That's it. You're only going to get the spectrum for 6 minutes. But in Phoenix, you can get a whole hour in the morning and an hour at night."
oh, wow. And that's
Like,
probably one of the
no,
reasons why you feel so called there.
no wonder. It's because I can be more light absorbent.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's so fascinating. And so what do you do like when you got like today, 28 inches of snow on the ground? You know what
Well,
I mean?
I asked my guides exactly that in a kind of a complaining tone. I'm just
Yeah.
like, "You guys tell me I need more sun. Phoenix has more sun, right?" And they're like, "The same sun is above you as that's above Phoenix."
Yeah. Yeah.
Ah, dang it.
And and we're not such limited beings that we can't connect with Earth just because there's 2 feet of snow outside.
We can still connect. We can take a bath. The bath
Mhm.
is warmed water that came right from the earth. It's got the negative charge that Earth does, so it can
Yep.
ground us. And the sun, the photons go right through the clouds. They still come in. It's the intention.
Yeah, I
When the sun
agree.
is shining and you walk out there and say, "Oh, bless me," your intention is to bring in the sunshine. So it does. But if you
Yes.
walk out, if you're complaining and saying, "I don't see the damn sun anywhere," well, the sun's going to be like, "Screw you. I ain't getting you any of my golden."
Well, you've just like put this barrier up between you and the
Right.
sun,
That's right.
right? I'm guessing you can receive a lot more sun, first off, when you believe you can see it, and second off, if you're grateful for it.
Right. And remote view it.
Oh, I never thought of that. That's kind of
When I
cool.
really need the sun, I just remote view it.
That's fabulous, Roy.
So I mean, I gotta have it sometimes.
Yeah, you're a sun baby
I'm a
for
sun baby.
sure.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yep. Come
I'm sure we
summertime,
all
I'll
are
be
to
out
some
there
degree.
and that's why I do the videos that I do, is to teach people why I have gone as extreme as I've gone to be organic.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I appreciate it, Roy, and I understand so much more than I did before. And
Good.
so I'm super, super grateful.
Good, good.
Yes. So one last question, because it
Okay.
just popped in to ask, and then we can wrap this up. With the hydrogen, right? When I'm doing the hydrogen water with distilled water, it makes me so flippin' hungry. Do you have any thoughts around this? And maybe you haven't encountered this one yet, so maybe
Oh
you
yeah.
know what I mean.
I
I
get
don't know if you
hungry.
would know.
I get really hungry after I've been breathing for like an hour and a half. If I do a meditation or something on there and I drink a quart of water, I am just famished when I'm done. I don't
Yeah.
know why.
Okay.
Honestly, I don't know why. I could guess. And I just saying that probably because you've elevated your spirit and you've eaten probably much better than you normally do. And so your body's craving stuff. I don't know. I know that
Yeah.
because of the hydrogen in the water, I was eating like an ice cream sandwich from time to time because I still like
Yeah.
my a sugary treat, but
Right.
not anymore. I haven't had, and I'm trying to get rid of candida. I
Right.
I haven't had any sugary things for, well, 2 weeks since I started the candida.
Nice. 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 Nice.
But I
Okay.
really want some good food. Well, I'm
Right.
hungry.
Well, my initial thing was is because I meditate in the morning, so I was meditating with the hydrogen and then immediately wanting to eat. But normally I fast until noon to 2, right? And that was doing pretty good. And so my initial thought was, dang, I'm gonna start gaining weight, right? But I haven't. I've actually dropped weight, and I've actually wanted to eat more healthy, more fruits and vegetables, not less. You know what I mean? I've actually wanted the other stuff less, even
Mm,
though I still want it and I still eat it sometimes. I'm wanting it less.
right.
So and I'm dropping weight still, and I'm like, okay, I guess that's fine if I'm
Well,
eating and still dropping weight.
you know what I've found works for me now that I don't eat any kind of a junk food? If I'm hankering or I'm hungry, a quart of hydrogen water, and then I'll take like 10 spirulina capsules. And like
Mm,
I've got my moringa powder put in capsules because you can't overdose on it and it's just good. So, and then I
yeah,
also have another green spectrum drink that's just got a whole range of stuff, but I don't like the taste of it. So I capsule it. So I'll
yeah.
drink a quart of hydrogen water with like maybe 15 or 20 green drink capsules.
Oh
That's a
wow, yeah, that is a
pop
meal.
open. I mean, that's a full meal. And so I'll do that. I'll do my smoothie in the morning, a full green drink, and then maybe 3 more of those throughout the day, quarts of water with a handful of green supplements. And that's pretty much all I eat now.
Wow, 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 wow. Okay, I'm gonna have to look into some more of that. Awesome. Thank you so much, Roy, for being willing
Super.
to share all this and let me pepper you with questions to
You
help me
bet.
understand and
Maybe
hopefully
on
other
our
people.
next one, I'll have some slides, show you some different, some synthetic clinoptilolite and some natural clinoptilolite and stuff like that.
Okay, that would be fun to do another one. I'm sure we will.
Cool. Sounds good.
Hey,
Okay. We'll talk to
all
you
right.
later.
Thanks, Roy. All
Okay.
right. Bye.